My name is Dan Rayburn. I'm the conference chairman. I'll do this presentation today. What I wanted to do is take a little bit of what we have on the exhibit floor, the device pavilion over there, and bring it into here and get hands-on with it and show the differences between them. And I thought the way I'd do that, because there's quite a few devices in the market, is I would pick all the devices that are $99 or cheaper. So there's no gaming consoles up here. So what I have up here are 6 different boxes, and I also have slides on each single one. So before I get started, just a high level on what we're seeing with devices these days. There's a lot of talk in the media about devices. There's a lot of talk about over-the-top content. Everybody's talking about an Apple TV that doesn't even exist in the market today. The bottom line is these products aren't yet disrupting the market because they're not selling enough of them. That's the huge problem. I actually have a slide at the end of the presentation that lists how many devices have been sold for each manufacturer. It's very little. So while these devices are fun, they're cool, they're neat to use, there's still a lot of problems with them. The interfaces in a lot of them don't work well. Some of them have very limited content. Some, like Roku, have lots of content channels, and the D-Link box only has 3. So there's a lot of fragmentation in the market amongst connected devices, and not just streaming boxes, but also connected TVs and Blu-ray players. So what I'm going to do is show some of these today. I'm going to run through some of the content choices on them, and I have slides that give some more details. And then if you want to get more hands-on with these, just come to the pavilion. Everything you see here is a duplicate of what we already have there. So hopefully everything I try and show today is going to work. The problem we had here in the beginning is Netflix only allows you to stream from so many boxes at one time. And between these boxes and the boxes in the pavilion and the tablets, we're close to 40 devices. So hopefully everything here works. So the first one I'm going to start with is Apple TV. So Apple TV currently right now, their box is there's only one model. They only have one model. It's $99. It's considered the 3rd generation Apple TV. To date, they've sold less than 5 million of 2nd and 3rd generation combined. That number comes directly from Apple, who at the end of Q4 of last year said they had sold 4.2 million boxes of both the Apple TV 720 and 720 and 1080p version, which is the hockey puck one here. So if you estimate they sold a bunch in Q1 as well, they're at about 5 million boxes. So that's not a lot. The good thing about the Apple TV is they've recently upgraded it to support 1080p. Previously it was only 720. But it's pretty limited. It doesn't support older TVs. It only supports HDMI. There's no composite. There's no component, there's no hard drive, there's no USB support. I love how Apple designs things, but anything that takes watch batteries is kind of annoying because most people don't have watch batteries lying around. The setup is pretty simple. It's very clean, typical Apple style. The content channels they support are Netflix, MLB, NHL, NBA, and YouTube, so pretty limited. You cannot play content from a local area network across your Apple TV. There is no way to hook up an external hard drive. We're going to talk about AirPlay in a minute. But there's no USB port on here. It's also not DLNA certified either. As far as content choices go, most movie rentals cost $4.99 per movie rental, and purchases are $20, which is still way too expensive. But that's a problem with the studios as opposed to the device. Apple no longer supports 99-cent TV rentals, so this was pretty interesting. I forget the date, but maybe about 18 months ago, Fox and ABC agreed to give Apple content where you could actually just rent a show for 99 cents, which I think was a good value. The problem is you had a lot of studios come out and say that they felt that that was making their content worth a lot less in the market at 99 cents. So they didn't join on with Fox and ABC. Disney later signed on, but with just a very limited amount of content. So Apple then killed the 99-cent TV rentals. You can't get them anymore. You now have to purchase TV shows for $2.99 each. The Apple TV has no open SDK. I've been getting asked by a lot of people who see all the devices on the exhibit floor, how do I get my content onto these boxes? In most cases, you can't. There's no open SDK. You can't go develop a channel. Roku and some others have that, but most of them don't. AirPlay. AirPlay is something that I think Apple gets far too much credit for. For those that don't know what AirPlay is the ability to stream a piece of content from an Apple device, iPhone or iPad, directly to your TV by simply having an Apple TV box in the middle. and you can pick up where you left off. It's a pretty interesting technology. The problem is that it requires developers to actually support it, to write that functionality into their code. So as an example, the app that TNT has, where you can watch TNT full-length episodes, if you try and AirPlay that from your iPod, from your iPhone to your TV, it works. But if you try it from your iPad, there's no functionality for it. So they purposely left the functionality of the iPad version. So AirPlay is pretty cool when it works, but the problem is unless developers really start supporting it, I don't think it's as big deal as some really make it out to be. Also, AirPlay does not support video shot with your iPhone as of yet. So you shoot your iPhone, video with your iPhone, but you can't actually use AirPlay to get that to your TV. So that's a little strange as well. On the bottom here, it just says, Apple said iTunes customers have shown they overwhelmingly prefer to buy TV shows as opposed to rentals. Well, the reason they prefer to buy it is because you haven't made the rentals available. So that's not a fair comparison. So I'm not a huge fan of the Apple TV. There's boxes in the market that, for the same price, offer a lot more. You're going to see some of those boxes today. Okay, Kelly, if we can go to Apple TV, please. Oh, terrific. They put out an update. Jeez. So is the issue here my iTunes account isn't in here, probably? Yeah. Okay, well, you know what? This is a good example to see what it takes to use this box. Okay, so if you've never used this box before, one of the first things you'll notice is you can't go from one side to the other side with the letters. So to actually put in your account information, you have to go to every single one. And if you have a long email address like I do, the other thing is none of the other devices require this. But because when we first plugged this in, it didn't see a network connection, it requires you to have to put in your information again. All right, Kelly, take it off for a second, or then I won't be able to see it either, right? That's an issue. Ah, boy. And this is the one account that actually works, too. Yeah, all right. Close your eyes for like 30 seconds, though, because it's going to take... Oh, now I got to go all the way over here. I'm going to have to change the password after this anyway now. I have no choice. No. Okay. There we go. So this is a pretty new interface. Apple updated their interface probably, a couple months ago. So before this, it looked a little bit different. But you see Netflix, MLB. I can't show NHL because the NHL account no longer works once the regular season is over. You can't get the playoffs or any of the championship games through the NHL service. So unfortunately, I can't show that. I'm not going to show NBA right now. Let's go to Major League Baseball. So MLB does this really well on Apple TV. If you want to do game recaps, they'll take every game and they'll basically condense it down into 2 minutes. And the quality is really good. So typically it takes a couple seconds for it to buffer and really get good, but you can see already this is great. They also have a nice scrub, fast-forward, rewind type function. So those are just game recaps. Now if you actually want to go to a live game, see if any... This is all subscriptions, so you have to pay anywhere between $95 to $120 a year, depending on which service you want from MLB. So this is a live game where you can pick the home or away feeds.
The game's on.
That's see, it's a little choppy right now, but just give it a few seconds.
And that
is a ball inside and a walk to Castillo.
The quality is really, really good. All the premium content guys strive to be Major League Baseball. They are now entering their 10th year of offering this live on the internet as a subscription service.
Something Mott usually doesn't do.
So they're as good as you get.
Or a guy that throws his heart.
So that's MLB. Now, at the same time, MLB has local blackout restrictions. So don't think that you can cut the cable and all of a sudden get all your sports on this. You can't, because if you're in the local area, if I'm a Mets fan, which I am, and I'm here in New York, I can't get this. So that's the one downside, but you have to expect that. Netflix is okay on the Apple TV, but some of the boxes like Roku work better. They're just quicker. I'll let you guys decide what you think, though, when you see it. So that might be because we're just playing Netflix on so many devices out there. This has YouTube. Every device up here has YouTube except for Roku, which we'll get into in a minute. So this is the interface for YouTube for featured. And then up here, this is where you can actually purchase all the content. So you've got TV shows, you've got movies. This is where you can set up AirPlay. I'm not going to show AirPlay today, but you can see it in the pavilion if you'd like. Let's go to movies for a second. Trailers. Okay, now I want to pull up a specific trailer. There we go. I'm going to show G.I. Joe specifically because, especially in the beginning, the amount of detail in the trailer.
Check out the new trailer from G.I. Joe Retaliation right here.
You'll see just how little. I mean, there's no pixelation at all. And obviously, this looks even better on TV. You've seen all those little things fly off. No pixelation.
Let me get this straight. One whole weekend, you looking after my little girls.
Yep, as long as I can bring this. I love your kids, but they live to terrorize me.
I do.
And if you really want to see what this looks like on
Security,
TV,
sir.
check it out. It's all streaming, so clearly good quality. So that's Apple TV. There's nothing else to really show on there. So let's move on to the next one. Yeah, we're going to go to the next box. This one's called the Sony SNP-N200. Probably the worst possible name you could come up with for a box. And it's the second generation, because the first generation was called what? The N100. It's bigger than the others. You can come up and see it afterwards. It's about twice the size, maybe a little more than an Apple TV. It's $69, so it's a little bit cheaper. We have no data on how many have been sold of first or second generation. Also, for all of you taking photos of this, these slides are already online. Go to streaming.com/east, click on program. You can already download them. I estimate they've sold well less than 1 million of first and second generation. Latest model released, you can see. This one's really good in terms of specs. HDMI, optical audio, Ethernet, component, composite, USB. Every device here supports 1080p video. It has no hard drive, but it supports local playback via USB, and it supports a lot of formats and codecs here as well. It's another one that takes watch batteries. The setup is very easy. The user interface is very poorly defined. It's not defined as to where you go to get stuff. It's not designed well. There wasn't a lot of thought put into how you work it. And that's because it uses a version of Sony's XMB interface, which is also on the PlayStation 3. So if you're familiar with that, you have to scroll through everything. It's also pretty slow. Content-wise, you got Netflix, Hulu Plus, Amazon, which is a nice addition, Vudu, and YouTube. So Sony's box has more functionality than the Western Digital WD TV Live, which I'm going to cover next, but supports less audio and video formats, and it's a poorer interface. So it's not a box I can recommend. So let's jump to that one, please. So this is the interface in terms of being able to scroll around. Oops, remember I got a point here. So it's just like the, very similar to the PS3. So it's not as easy to navigate. Let's go to Hulu Plus. Apparently thinks it's not connected. Failed. Okay. Let's try Netflix on here. Okay, yes. Wired. It doesn't want to pull anything. There we go. All right, you know what? Let's let that one connect and come back to that one. So let's go back to the laptop. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is the Neo TV. This is made by Netgear. This just came out. I actually didn't realize it came out in September of last year. So the device chart that we're giving out at the show that has all the different devices on it, it's actually not on there. And that's simply because Netgear does a terrible job of promoting they even have this box in the market. I have all these boxes at home, all the stuff you see in the device pavilion. I have all that stuff at home. I had no idea this box was even out. So they need to do a better job of promoting it. It's actually a pretty good little box. It's $49. This is the second generation. I can't remember the first one, but they didn't sell a lot of them. The first one came out in August of 2010. No hard drive, no support for USB. Again, watch batteries. The setup is simple. The interface is really good. It's really snappy. It's very quick. But it's a bare bones box. You have Netflix, you have Hulu Plus, you have Vudu, and you have YouTube. That's it. There's no open SDK for that. The box works really well. But the Roku box offers far more content channels for the same price. But the Roku box at $49 is 720p, and this one is 1080. So if you really care about 1080, maybe you go with this. But if you want a lot more content channels, you go to 720. My personal opinion is if the TV is probably under 40 inches in size, you really can't tell too much of a difference between 720 and 1080. So you really only need 1080 when you go to the larger TVs. Okay, so let's go to the Netgear. So the interface on here, very well set up, very simple. You can find everything very easily. Let's try Vudu this time. This one was also extremely easy to set up. Now, Vudu tends to be a little slow, so that's not the box. That's actually Vudu. So Vudu is a service. There's no subscription service. It's a rental or purchase service. So you can go to, let's pick a somewhat newer movie here. You can rent this for $3.99 to $5.99 based on 3 different qualities. So you have SD, HD, and what Vudu calls HDX. HDX is the best quality streaming out there of any services in the market today, but it requires between 8 and 10 megs of bandwidth, which the average consumer probably doesn't have. Even if they have DSL providing 8, 10, 12, they're typically not fully getting that. So HDX is hard for a lot of the average consumers to get, but you can certainly get HD and SD. We actually have some movies on here already, so we're going to watch one of those.
Dan, how long is the rental?
The rental is on all of these between 24 and 48 hours. Each one does it a little differently. Well, if you own the movie, it's not a download because it's basically in the cloud. So there's no physical hard drive in this. Vudu, when they first came out, I actually have one of them at the pavilion not hooked up, but they came out with a box that was like this big and it had a hard drive in it. When you bought a movie, you downloaded it to the hard drive, and they were in the business of selling boxes, and they were $200 to $300 when they first came out. And they quickly realized being in the business of selling boxes, very hard. Not a lot of margin in hardware. So they then decided they were going to try and license their platform to a lot of manufacturers. Then Vudu got snapped up by Walmart. So Vudu's owned by Walmart 100%. And now most broadband-enabled TVs have Vudu on it already. So they've made a very good transition going from a box manufacturer to a platform manufacturer. Almost none of these guys have been able to do that. So I give Voodoo credit for that. We'll watch this in HDX if we have enough bandwidth. And it's playing. So I'm going to give it a second. I'm going to also show you just how we can scrub through this.
Your Majesty.
Of course, I got to
Got
pick
him
a
up
movie
in a
that's really
fishing net.
dark,
A
but
fishing net. He's been telling
look at it, the
stories.
TV
Stories that we believe he's found them.
extremely good. So what else is there to say about this? It's a good little cheap box that works well. There's just not a lot of content choices. I'm also not highlighting any of the boxes in terms of music or photos. So a lot of these all have Pandora. You can share photos. They have Facebook. I just personally don't care about those apps because they don't involve video. So if you're looking for things outside of video, just check the boxes because a lot of them all have music and photos. Let's see if we can go back to the Sony, Kelly.
Have we tried to list their OS, whether Linux-based or iOS?
Yeah, all right, we're going to skip to Sony. I have not listed what OS that they are currently operating on. I do have a list on my computer of which version of OS. So if you do want to see that, I have it. I just haven't published it in the chart. I set up the boxes I brought here. I don't have them all set up at home at one time because I need a mansion. So I set up every box with the latest updates maybe about 3 weeks before the show. And then I checked on each box. Some of the boxes had 2 and 3 updates since the 3 weeks. And you saw Apple just had another update. So they're constantly changing the OS, and it's hard to stay on top of it. Hence why we didn't publish it, because it'll be outdated already. Okay, here's the worst box in the market. This is the D-Link Movie Night. This came out last month, April 2012. It's only sold at Walmart, online and in the stores. The reason for that is the box was developed in conjunction with Walmart. It's a very cheap box. It has a remote that only has 4 buttons on it for each of the content services. That's good in that it's easy. It's bad in that it means that they will never add additional content to the box, which they've said they won't. So if you like Netflix, Vudu, Pandora, or YouTube, that's all this box does. Has HDMI, Ethernet, composite, Wi-Fi, supports video up to 1080p, no USB, no hard drive. The setup process is absolutely horrible. Of the 2 boxes I set up, neither would work with Wi-Fi. Talking to tech support, they had no idea. They couldn't figure out how to get the box to work. As far as I'm concerned, this box serves absolutely no purpose in the market because at $49 for $1 more, you can get a Roku, which has tons of content on it, very easy setup. Again, it's 720 instead of 1080. But the average person that they're trying to sell this box to isn't someone who wants the latest and greatest technology. They want it to sell it to somebody who, similar to Roku, is looking for a very simple, easy box that delivers good quality, who wouldn't know the difference between 720 and 1080 and wouldn't care about the difference. So that's who this box is targeting. But even with that target demographic, they're doing a terrible job. So I'm going to show this really quickly. This is, I don't know why they develop all their own things without buying someone else in the market, but it's typically, more than anything, typically ego. Okay, so we haven't done Netflix yet, so let's do that. I hope you guys are prepared to wait a while. Actually, that's a little bit faster than it's been, but just keep waiting. Last I counted, it was 40 seconds to go from the button to Netflix to actually coming on. And that's not to play a movie. Now it's checking my connection. The companies, the software in each of these boxes is written by the companies. However, the apps are written mostly by the box manufacturers, but they obviously work with the Netflix and Hulus of MLBs of the world. So this is Netflix. Let's pick something that's not scary. So let's just try to play this. Okay, resume playing. So now it's checking the connection on the bottom, and it's loading at the same time. Okay, so this is actually a Netflix error because we know the network. We know the network works. So let's pick something else. Nope. So that's interesting. I don't know what that is right there, problem-wise. But we can move on to the next box. I'm going to, of all these boxes that I'm going to give away, this is the one box that I'm not going to do a drawing for. So whoever wants this box can just come up and take it. I don't want it. Okay. Next, we're going to go to, let's get to the good boxes. Roku. This is the Roku 2XS, which you can come up here and see. They currently have 3 models right now, 4 models. Actually, technically 5 models because they have an Angry Birds edition. So they have a $49, $59, $79, and $99 model, which the difference is the 49 and 59 have 720p, the 79 and 99 have 1080. And then there's also a special edition, maybe you can show that, Kelly, Angry Birds. It's just red. It's got the bird on it. But you can play Angry Birds on that device, that model. This one has HDMI, Ethernet component, USB, has a micro SD slot. The earlier Rokus had a regular SD slot. So each Roku model changes a little bit. There's no hard drive support, but it does play back local media via USB. But it doesn't support a lot of file formats or codecs. So remember that the Sony one, or if you have the chart in front of you, there's a huge list that it supported. So there's trade-offs with each box. Setup is very simple and passes the mom test, meaning I actually gave this to my mom. She set it up, didn't really have any issues, didn't plug it into Ethernet, set up the Wi-Fi by herself. So very simple and easy to use. Has Netflix, Hulu Plus, Amazon, HBO Go, Epix, MLB, NHL, UFC, NBA. That's a lot of content. It's one of the only boxes that does not support YouTube. It's almost the only box that doesn't. Down the bottom here it says Roku will only say that they are working on it. When it comes to why they don't have support for YouTube, they really don't want to talk about why they don't have support, but what I think happened is when the Roku first came out, they basically came up with a private channel on their own to play back all YouTube's content without permission. And a little while after the box was out, they basically were forced to pull it. And since then, they've never had support for Roku. So it's probably that they're not given permission. Because when the D-Link box, which is terrible, has Roku support, and it hasn't sold any and won't sell many, but Roku, which is one of the best-selling devices, doesn't have it, there's clearly an issue going on there. They have an open SDK. They're one of the few boxes up here where if you want to develop a channel for the Roku, you can. You can get the SDK and develop it. All the other guys here, they're not interested in you. If you're not MLB or Netflix, they don't care about putting your content on the box. They just recently launched in Canada, the UK, and Ireland, so they're branching outside of the U.S. They did $100 million in revenue last year, and they're aiming to be profitable in 2013. They've raised $32.5 million to date, and they're looking to raise another $50 million this year, and they're looking to spend a lot of that on advertising. So Roku is one of the companies that has really been around forever. They started with their first model of May in 2008. They've sold 2.5 million boxes in 4 years. So that's not a big number. It's a great little box. It's one of my favorites, but it's 2.5 million boxes. It's not changing the market. What else about Roku? Support's really good. I've always been happy with the Roku support on here. And the interface is pretty quick and pretty snappy. Let's move to that really quickly. Also, I'm not going to go through what type of remote each one has. Some are Bluetooth, some are IR. You can just come play with those later. So these are all the channels that I loaded on here. You just scroll through them. But if you actually want to see all the channels they have, you go to their channel store. And one interesting thing I've seen is that some enterprise corporations are developing channels for here. So, for instance, I think is one of them Vanguard, somebody like that. You know, Fortune 500 enterprise corporation realized, well, what we'll do is these boxes are $50, $60. We'll give them out to all of our employees to take home, and we'll develop our own channels so that they can watch streaming videos pertaining to our business in their house. Smart way to do it. So these are all the different channels: featured, new, most popular, top rated, and they have a lot of stuff on here. They have a lot of foreign content as well. So if you want to get, you know, Al Jazeera, all kinds of different foreign content. Let's go with, we haven't done HBO Go yet. So this box is sold so well because it has the most content channels compared to the others. Now, Roku says they're the best-selling box in the market. I don't really know what that means because Apple's sold more. But the only reason Apple has sold more is they have a huge Apple ecosystem already in the market. So people are buying a new MacBook, an iPad, and there's a $99 device. Yeah, I'll throw it in there. People going to buy a Roku are going specifically to get the Roku. So HBO is a service that only works online. It's actually called HBO Go. It only works online if you have a subscription to HBO Go through your cable operator. You can't get this digital. They'll never separate it digital. A lot of people in the industry say, oh, that's crazy. They're losing a lot of subscriptions. They're not. They're not going to go and lose all the revenue from a cable operator to move to digital where the pricing is going to be half the price. So you're never going to see this, I don't think, as a digital service by itself. The interface with HBO Go is real easy, very simple. It's also very quick. Everything starts up very fast.
Best thing is, she's not even reached her peak yet.
Okay, thanks, John. Well, we're joined in the studio now by Jesse's mother, Mrs. Bamra. Mrs. Bamra, you must be very proud of your daughter.
I'd say it's not as good as MLB, but again, MLB is broadcasting stuff in such high bit rate. Showtime, Epix. Let's go through Epix real quickly. Epix has been coming to a lot more boxes lately as well. See how quickly that started. Just said we'll begin shortly, testing the connection, and you're getting a stream. That was the first video. Now it's testing the second one.
Who exactly are you?
So this is actually a great clip to show because you can see all the details.
Sheriff, we got a problem.
This is my town. So that's HBO. The other thing you can do here on the Roku is the media player. So if I plugged in a USB stick or I plugged in an external hard drive via USB, I can play back any content that supports MP4, MKV, WMV. So that's good. It doesn't support a lot of third-party content. Doesn't support a lot of content through USB, but at least it supports some and some of the most popular. So that's the Roku. Let's see what box I missed here. We missed the Western Digital. So this is the WD-TV Live, Western Digital. Again, I prefer a different name, but this is the third generation. So this one came out Q4 of last year. I don't know how many have been sold, but I estimate less than 2,000. 2 million. I'm not showing the other device they have here. We have it on the device floor called the WD TV Live Hub. The Hub is $199 and it has a 1 or 2 terabyte drive inside of it. This has no hard drive. So those are the two differences in them. Also, the Hub has no Wi-Fi. This one does. The second generation of this box, before this one, had no Wi-Fi built in, which probably means it didn't sell too well because everything had Wi-Fi at the time. So when they came out with this box, they redesigned it. It's smaller. It's a lot faster interface-wise. It's very customizable. It has Wi-Fi built in, 1080p support. You can see all these things it supports, formats and codecs, quite a few. The setup is easy, very customizable interface. You can change colors and looks and feel, which you can't do in any other box. It's quick, but it could be a little snappier. Netflix, Hulu, MLB, Vudu, and YouTube. An open SDK, which is actually built on Adobe Flash Lite. That's how you build apps on here. It's kind of different. For those who have a lot of content you want to play from your local network, this is the best sub-$99 box on the market today, hands down. If you actually want one that has a hard drive in it, so you don't have to have a hard drive in your own box, the Hub is the best one in the market, in my opinion. Let's jump to a demo of that. So the navigation here on the bottom, this is where you can actually dump all of your videos and your files. You can put your photos on here, your music. None of these boxes can stream your iTunes content except Apple TV, naturally because it's the iTunes ecosystem. But I get asked that question a lot. Can that stream iTunes? No. Services. So this is what they have. They still have Blockbuster on demand, surprisingly. It's actually the only device I think that is still left. Blockbuster has been removing their apps from devices. They removed it from TiVo, a bunch of others. Let's go to, should we try in this? Oh, actually, let's try Hulu. You can rearrange the order of the icons on the Western Digital. You can do that on the Roku. You cannot do that on D-Link. There's not enough to arrange. You can do it on the Sony, but you can't do it on the Apple. So this is Hulu. And this is pretty typical of Hulu. It takes time to load. The interface isn't the greatest, in my opinion. And this is Hulu Plus. So this is the account where you actually have to pay for.
Why do you think I missed it?
Not because video quality is very good.
I don't think that. I really don't. Everyone should be able to make mistakes.
So you can see when I said go back to the home screen, you can see it's going there, but it could definitely be faster. This has MLB as well. The interface is nowhere near as nice as Apple TV. YouTube, Vimeo. Yeah, there's 2 different YouTubes on here. And it's got Radio Live 365. So that's WDTV Live. Let's go back to the slides, please. So we've got 10 minutes. I'm going to show one more thing, and then we'll do some questions. Number of devices sold to date in North America. So Apple TV, let's say we're at 5 million. Let's say Roku's 3. Western Digital is less than 1 million or 2. Sony's very few. Boxy, we don't know for sure, but last week a tweet came out from Boxy saying they had sold 200,000 boxes to date. The company very quickly said that was not accurate, and it was an intern that tweeted it, that their numbers are much higher, or their numbers are higher. They didn't say what the numbers are. But they're easily under 500,000 boxes, so they haven't even sold 500,000 yet. D-Link just got released. TiVo has less than 1 million or about 1 million HD units in the market. And I come up with those numbers based on the public numbers they put out quarterly on the number of standalone TiVo subscribers outside of the bundled MSO packages. So TiVo just doesn't have a lot of boxes in the market. Here's where the numbers get big. Xbox and PS3. So Xbox, as of April, had sold 67 million boxes globally, and almost 40 million were in the U.S. And PS3 has sold 62 million globally and 30 million in the U.S. These aren't exact numbers because neither Microsoft or Sony will say how many they've sold, but a company called NPD, which tracks the game console market, puts out numbers every quarter. So what you can very clearly see is the PS3 and the Xbox dominate the market by far. Nintendo Wii, it's not relevant. The last time I asked Nintendo, and granted it was a long time ago, but they said less than 85% of their boxes were connected to the internet, which is pretty typical if you think of who the average user is for a Wii. Netgear Neo TV, minimal. They haven't sold enough yet. Vizio Stream Player. You might notice in the program tomorrow there's something called device demos. It says Boxy and Vizio. Vizio is supposed to release a new box, which is in the device chart at NAB, or we thought it was going to be released around NAB, and they were going to come present it here. The box didn't get released, so unfortunately they're not going to present it tomorrow, and I don't have one at the Pavilion. It's a little too early. But they have an interesting box because it's going to be $99. It's going to have most of the major content guys on it. It's also going to have the Google TV platform, which is interesting because today you can only get Google TV through TVs, and those TVs are super expensive. Samsung, Sony, all these guys have come out with 2 or 3 models at most that'll have Google TV, but most of them are also the 50-inch 3D TVs, so they start at $2 or $3 grand. The Logitech Review, which is now $99, that's been discontinued, so Logitech's just selling out whatever's left. So Google TV, this is really going to be the first device you can really get it on for $99. The other interesting thing is the Vizio Stream Player will support 3D streaming. It'll support OnLive, which is a cloud-based gaming system. And it also has HDMI in and out pass-through, which no other box on the market has. So what that basically means is when I want to go, let's say I'm watching TV right now and I'm using my set-top box. The moment I want to go to a Roku or another box, I have to leave my set-top box, change the input, and go there. The Vizio box is going to allow you to overlay the video interface to your live TV. So you won't have to jump from one input to another. Very cool. Nobody else has that. These are the boxes that are discontinued. We're actually showing the review next door just so you can see it. The other 3 that we showed last year, we're no longer showing. High level, it's going to be very hard for these guys to make money if they're a standalone box manufacturer. You know, if Sony or Netgear don't sell enough boxes or D-Link, it doesn't really impact their bottom line because they're not spending a lot of money to roll them out. They're barely promoting them. They're selling the box for $48 or $49. It's a lot harder for somebody like Roku because their entire business is hardware. They're selling boxes. Boxy and Roku tried to get into the business of licensing their platform to television manufacturers, and hopefully they were trying to get to some set-top box manufacturers. To date, none of them are willing to license their software. Boxy did have a deal with ViewSonic. ViewSonic was going to come out with some TVs that had Boxy built into it, but after maybe 8 to 10 months of development, they canned that, so those aren't coming out. So it's going to be interesting to watch what a Roku and a Boxy does when they're only making money on hardware. They're both planning to come out with commerce systems that allow content owners to charge for content through the boxes. But if you only have a few 100,000 boxes in the market, you're not reaching a wide enough audience. So the thing to walk away from this presentation or being at the device pavilion is there's a lot of fragmentation in the market. The whole reason I started the pavilion was because it's hard as a consumer to figure out what all these boxes do in the store because none of them are really connected to the internet. So when you're looking for a box, look for the one that has all the right features and functionality that you need. And also, don't let the media, don't let them impact your business. So I do hear from a lot of content owners who say, well, I hear devices are so big, I got to start developing apps for them because so many are being sold. No, they're not. You'll notice when you read most stories from the media about how many Apple TVs have been sold or Rokus, notice they never say what the number is or how many have been sold. They just say that they're taking over the world and the broadcast TV model is dead. It's anything but the case. Same with things like cord cutters. So look at what the real numbers are. See how many have actually been sold, and then get hands-on with some of the boxes and see if you like them. I always recommend Amazon for anything like this that you buy because their policy to return it. If you don't like it, ship it up and send it back. They'll happily take it from you. So with that, I'm not going to try and compete with cocktails. So we're going to do 5 minutes of questions, and then we're going to do giveaways, and then you guys can go. Yes, sir.
What is the impact of Blu-ray players on the sales?
Yeah, good question.
So many Blu-ray players also offer a plethora of these same services.
So the question is, what's the impact of Blu-ray players that are connected, and how do they compare? We have a couple in the pavilion you can check out. Blu-ray players tend to be a lot slower. The interface is pretty slow on them. It's hard to navigate. These boxes, their core function is streaming. Blu-ray player's core function is playback of media disc. So most of them think of Blu-ray as an afterthought. However, we do have a connected Blu-ray out there from Samsung, which is very nice. It's very quick, the new one. Very fast interface, but the problem is it's retail, $230, $240. So that's a very different price than Blu-ray players, which are now $79. So you're paying for that new technology. Whether or not consumers want to pay for it, that's to be seen at this point. I can't remember the exact model that we have out there or what it has or what it doesn't, but just come by afterwards and just get hands-on with it. Yes, questions? Yes, sir. So the question is, do any of these boxes have a future since their functionality is moving to smart TVs? Don't know. It's too early to know. Here's the problem with smart TVs. How many have actually been sold? Doesn't matter. All that matters is how many are connected. So iSupply, Display Search, all these firms that put out numbers every quarter, hey, 200 million TVs are going to be sold this year, and 50% of them will be broadband enabled. Okay, that's a big number, but how many of those are connected? Most would say 20 to 25%, at most. So you went from a number of 200 million to 100 million to 25 million, and that's if you sell them all. The other issue is I wanted to do a chart with all the connected TVs, but didn't get around to it. The problem is you can't find connected TVs in a small size. There's only two models. There's a Vizio connected TV that's small size, 22 inches, that we have on the show floor, and there's one by, I think it's Sony. LG, Samsung, all those others, their smallest connected TV is typically 40 inches and up, which means that you're paying additional for that. The average broadband connected TV is probably about $200 still more expensive, $200 to $250 than non-broadband enabled. So if you want one for your kitchen or a place where you want a smaller 32-inch connected TV, you're not going to find it. So that's a problem, I think. The other issue is the software is getting better on broadband-enabled TVs, but it's still pretty far behind most of these boxes. I got to say the Samsung one is really nice. At home, I have a Samsung, I have a Vizio, I have a Sony, and I have a Google TV. I definitely prefer the Samsung connected one out of all of them. They've really thought out the interface pretty well, and it works pretty fast compared to some of the others. So will these guys be replicated? Will what they're offering be replicated on a TV? It will over time, but are people going to replace their TV every couple years to get the latest content platforms? This year, the numbers I've seen say global TV shipments will only grow by 2%. That's not a lot. So broadband smart TVs are not the winner. People want to say they're the winner, and I'm not even going to get into the Apple TV because everybody's saying that's going to change the market, even though the product's not actually been announced or on the market. So we'll deal with that if and when it comes out. Yes?
Yeah, two questions.
One question only.
Okay, so if you want to bring to U.S. customers overseas or foreign content, which is the best option to choose from?
None. None of these are offered overseas except the Roku, which is only in UK, Ireland, and Canada.
That was the second question, but the question is, if you want to bring content to U.S. customers...
Oh, so you're outside the U.S., which you are, and you want to come to the U.S. Which box?
With content.
Right, with content. You can't with Apple. You can't with D-Link. You can't with Netgear. You can with Western Digital and with Roku because they have open SDKs.
So the best option probably is?
Well, there isn't a best. It's these two. But let's say you got content on every Roku 2 box out there in the market. You'd only be reaching a potential 3 million audience. if only 20% of those people actually watched your content, those numbers aren't anything to change your business.
But if you want to address a small audience,
you want to reach a small audience, the Western Digital or the Roku. It's the best one. One more question, then it's giveaways. Yes, sir.
What's your prediction for what's going to happen with the Google TV platform? I saw LG is introducing a new series of Google Power TVs. There have been reports maybe some other ones will come on board. Is it too late?
So the question is, what do I think about the Google TV platform? There's been some announcements of LG, Samsung, Sony, Vizio, at least 4 manufacturers who are going to put out TVs that have Google TV baked in, like Sony used to have with their NSX series. Here's the problem. If you look at the specs that they've put out for those models that have Google TV in it, it's their most expensive TVs. It's either 47 or 50 inches in size. They include 3D. So they're automatically starting at, $2,500. There's no Google TV in the market coming out by any of the manufacturers that's under $2,000 anywhere. Close. 47 inch? Okay, so that's getting a little bit better. Is that list price or Amazon price?
That's their list price.
Okay, so it might be even a little bit cheaper than that.
I mean, their thought is that it's going to target a younger audience, so they can't make it the most expensive line. But it does have the smart TV platform, 3D, which adds...
That's the right idea, is if you're targeting an audience demographic that's younger, that doesn't have as much money to buy TVs, it needs to be cheaper. The problem is Google TV, most of the content from the major manufacturers is blocked. Major broadcasters is blocked. So why would you get a Google TV when you can't get a lot of content on it? So I like the idea of Google TV because of all the fragmentation. If every manufacturer used one platform, this industry would be 10 times larger. We might be out of a job because we wouldn't have to educate people, but the fragmentation in the market is one of the biggest problems. And I don't see that going away anytime soon with any of the manufacturers or Google TV. So thank you. We've got cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. We're going to do the giveaways really quickly.